First story. Coworkers, xist fiancé uninvited OP, presuming he is a creep and will ruin her wedding. Then SLT shamed her sister so they wouldn't date, hiding her own crush on him. Now she is having a breakdown. All her friends cut ties with her because she uninvited every male friend who is single for the same reason, allowing only single women to her wedding. I've been working for my company for 7 years now, 5 of which have been spent on my current team. There are 15 people on it, and I'd say we're all pretty close, relatively speaking. I have a coworker named Bob 33M, who joined the team when I did. During the pandemic, he announced to everyone in a Zoom meeting that he was now engaged. Fast forward to this January, and Bob says that his wedding would be held in September of this year at a really beautiful winery. About 5 months ago, the invites started coming in for everyone on the team, but mine didn't. I waited a few weeks, but nothing came, so I went to Bob and asked if my invite got sent out. He gave me a solemn look and then told me that I wasn't invited because of a spacing issue. He said he tried to make it work, but just couldn't and hoped I didn't take it personally. He also said I'd be sure to get wedding favors and a piece of cake. He also asked me to keep it to myself and please not make a big deal out of it. I honestly didn't know what to say, so I guess I just said okay and walked away. I won't lie, I was upset. I hate feeling excluded, and it was doubly worse because everyone else on the team was going except for me. And honestly, I really like weddings. They're usually very fun. I kept it to myself, but I wasn't happy. The day of the wedding came 3 weeks ago, and it went by without a hitch. Everyone on my team had a grand time and said it was beautiful. The food and party were great as well, and apparently everyone got a dozen fresh apple cider donuts to take home. I never did get that cake or wedding favors, BTW. At work the following Monday, my team member, Sherry, told me that everyone was confused as to where I was. Apparently Bob said I was sick and couldn't make it. I was confused and then pissed. I straight up told her I wasn't invited and left it at that. She looked shocked and asked me to confirm, and I said yes, I wasn't invited. Well, Sherry told someone, because about 5 people asked me if I wasn't invited, and I said it was true. Today was Bob's first day back from his honeymoon, and it must have gotten back to him that I spilled the beans. He approached me in the break room, and he was upset that I told Sherry, and that it wasn't a big deal I missed the wedding. I said, how would you like to be excluded from something everyone else is going to? We went back and forth for a bit before Bob walked away. I was pretty upset, so upset that my project manager came to ask me if I was okay because she heard about me not being invited. I didn't want this to go this far, so I said yes. But other team members came up to me and said that Bob should have invited me, and it was wrong he didn't. Look, I realized that it was his wedding day, and he's allowed to invite who he wants. But I'm allowed to be upset that I wasn't invited, right? So Reddit, AITA, for telling people I wasn't invited to the wedding and being upset about it. Edit. Sorry, I forgot to put in the OP that I'm a 30 male. Edit 2. Wow guys, thank you for all the support. My inbox is begging for mercy. Top comment. AmItheA. You didn't ruin his wedding day, and you didn't say anything prior to the wedding or make a big deal of it. Bob straight up lied to your colleagues about why you couldn't attend, which is incredibly bizarre and a major move. You just corrected his mistake. Verdict. AmItheA. Update. I want to thank you all for the responses, especially for the wedding invites. Well, I have an update to this story, and it took an interesting turn. Bob and I were in the office today. He came to me and asked if we could talk. He asked if we could clear the air over some beers with his wife after work, and I said okay. After work, I meet Bob and his wife, Pam, in a bar. They both apologized for not inviting me and making me feel excluded. Bob apologized for lying and getting mad about it. The reason they didn't invite me is because they didn't want single guys at the wedding. They went to a big wedding back in 2019 that was ruined when a bunch of drunk, single guys started hitting on the women there. A few of the boyfriends and husbands got pissed, and it turned into a big fight. People were arrested, and it completely ruined the wedding. I found it hard to believe, but they showed me a couple of Facebook videos of them at a wedding, and it looked the damn Royal Rumble going on. I was even shown a few Facebook statuses confirming their story. Pam said she was sort of traumatized by this and swore they'd have no single guys at their wedding. Well, the wedding came, and Pam stuck to her guns. Only family, couples, single women, or trusted single men were to be invited. Pam said that there were only about 10 single guys there, and they were all family members or groomsmen. She said the party turned out amazing this way since women didn't have to worry about being hit on. Pam said it truly wasn't personal, and that she's so sorry for not inviting me, but would do it again. I asked if she and Bob didn't trust me enough to control myself. She said that Bob vouched hard for me, but she was sticking to her guns. The compromise was that she'd have to explain it if anyone asked, and that Bob got to choose the honeymoon destination. Curiously, she said that she had a sister around my age, and I was just her type, and she wanted to keep her away from me. I was a little offended at that, but she says that it's for my own good. Her sister is a little bit of SLT, her words, not mine, and she didn't want her to get her hooks in me again, her words. Bob said he should have handled it better, and he wanted to be honest, but it wouldn't have made much of a difference, so he hoped I wouldn't mind as much. Plus, he figured I wouldn't want to go to a wedding as a single guy anyway. I told them I was kind of hurt. They thought I would act like a creeper at their wedding. Pam assured me that she thought I was a nice, smart, funny guy, but she just wanted to make sure their wedding went off without a hitch. They promised to make it up to me, but I told them it wasn't necessary. Pam insisted on it and said I had to know how sorry she was. So we made plans to have dinner at their expense at a very nice restaurant in the city this weekend. So in the end, I guess it wasn't anything I did, but I still feel kind of insulted. But I guess I get a free dinner out of it. Edit. There are a lot of comments here suggesting that I'm being naive, a doormat, and letting them off easy for basically calling me a creep. I won't lie. I think you all might be right. I do believe in taking the high road on most occasions, but I don't think this should be one of those times. As a side note, I don't believe that wanting to see the best in people or taking them at their word makes you naive. I had a call an hour ago with my project manager and explained the entire situation. She advised me to go to HR and make a complaint since it could lead to a hostile work environment. I have a meeting with them Monday. I don't really want to make a formal complaint. Just have it on file in case anything happens. TBH, I don't think it will. Bob doesn't seem like that kind of person, but I've been wrong plenty of times before. So as per the advice here, I won't be going to dinner with Bob and Pam. I will, however, insist on a public apology that doesn't imply that I'm a creep. And I'm insisting on some fresh apple cider donuts, not store-bought, but fresh. Thank you for making me see the truth on Reddit. Although I'm disappointed, I'm turning down some Wagyu steak, so you all owe me one. Final update. I can't post any further updates on this sub, so I'll post updates on my profile. Top comment. What a pair of arses. Update and more context. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. I'm only allowed one update on AITA, and I can provide more detail with a self-post. Unfortunately, there's an update to this story. Honestly, this whole thing is stupid as hell, and I really just want to move on and forget this whole thing happened. But reality is often disappointing. But first, to clarify a few things. I had to omit a lot of information because of the character count in r/AmItheAsshole. I got a few posts and DMs asking why I felt entitled to be invited. I want to make it clear. I don't feel entitled to anything. Yes, I wanted to be invited, but as I said, if they had been honest with me from the beginning, I wouldn't have minded as much. They were allowed to do what they wanted on their wedding day. My problem was the subterfuge used to mask their choice. I'm usually not this indecisive, but this is a weird situation, and I don't exactly know how to handle it. I have never talked to Bob about women ever. We didn't have that kind of relationship. None of the men on the team do. I think the women do it among themselves, but I can't be sure about it. I'm choosing to believe Pam about her experience dealing with men. If recent years have shown us anything, is that we need to believe women when they say they've been harassed or assaulted. The trusted men were made up of family members and groomsmen who were explicitly told not to flirt with the women. Pam had to turn away some of her single guy friends, and Bob had a ton of guy friends who wanted to go, but were turned away. Bob and Pam's afterparty was going for a club vibe. Pam and some of her friends had very bad experiences being hit on at clubs, and Pam wanted to ensure their safety. She got the idea to exclude guys from going to women-only clubs. According to her, the vibe was so much better when women could get drunk and shake their arses and not be taken harassed by thirsty guys. The women at the wedding appreciated the lack of guys on the dance floor, but some complained about the lack of guys at the wedding. The wedding Royal Rumble happened at the wedding of one of her closest friends. The friend and her husband were devastated. Their wedding was ruined. It was so bad that they committed to having a 5-year vow renewal. Also, they were stuck with a large cleanup bill from the venue for damages. As for me, it was 70/30ths on me being invited. It came down to the fact that Pam didn't know me at all outside of my superb Super Mario Maker level design. Bob really fought hard for me, but Pam was too unsure. And then she remembered her sister. According to Pam, although she loves her sister to death, her sister is a huge SLT and goes from guy to guy with the change of the wind. Apparently, I'm dangerously her type, and she would have been all over me. I asked what was wrong with that. She said her sister doesn't deserve a sweet guy like me, and she didn't want her to get her hooks in me. This sealed my fate. Bob said it would look horrible if I wasn't invited. That's when she came up with the compromise of taking the heat for it. He was just hoping that I wouldn't mind not going. Maybe I'm naive, but I'm choosing to believe Bob about feeling horrible about not inviting me. He seemed really broken up about it. Either he's a damn good actor, or he's telling the truth. He acknowledged that the way he handled it was terrible. According to him, there was no way of doing this that wasn't awkward. As for why he lied, apparently he panicked and couldn't think of anything better. His getting mad at me for not going along with it wasn't necessarily about me, but being mad at Pam for putting him in that situation. He promised to make a full apology in front of the team when we're all together in the office again in a few weeks. Pam did say that she felt terrible about me and the other guys she had to exclude, but she would do it again to ensure the safety of the women around her. She was extremely insistent on making it up to me. She said that we should be friends going forward and offered a nice home-cooked meal to me, followed by some wine and a round of Mario Kart. I turned that down. That's when the expensive restaurant solution was offered. I accepted because it seemed like a fair compromise at the time. They didn't even have to really apologize for it. But they were offering me dinner, so I took it. In hindsight, I shouldn't have. But at that point, I just wanted to get out of there and go home. Now for the update. After reading the comments calling me a doormat, I decided not to accept their dinner offer. I called Bob on his work phone to explain my change of heart. He was disappointed, but understood my reasoning. I parroted some of the talking points, and he said he understood. He wouldn't make a big deal out of it, and we could just move on. I thanked him for being cool about it, and he hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But not 5 minutes later, Bob calls me back. I groan and pick up. Surprisingly, it was Pam on the other side. She didn't come at me hostile, but she did sound upset. She wanted to know why I didn't want to come anymore. I explained what I told Bob about how they basically insisted I was a creep. I told her I didn't want to invalidate her experiences, but I didn't have to accept being told I'm a potential sexual predator. She said that she didn't mean it like that, and that she thinks I'm a good person, but couldn't risk it for her wedding. She was practically begging me to meet her in person to clear the air further. She kept saying that we could be the best of friends if I'd give her a chance to explain better. I said no thanks, and that I had to go. But I'm sorry that she went through what she went through. I ended the call by saying, BTW, I didn't even get those donuts. I then hung up. It's been quiet since then. But Bob is back in the office on Monday, and I fear Pam might do something drastic. I hope this thing is over, but I fear it might not be. In any case, I'll update if anything happens. Update. Bob's drunken confession. Hey everyone. So, as I mentioned in my last update, I reached out to Bob and explained that I wouldn't be taking him and Pam up on their weekend dinner offer. He was disappointed but agreed with me. Pam called me back a few minutes later and fought hard to keep the plans. I declined and left it at that, hoping that would be the end of it. It wasn't. And now, this silly drama continues. I went in 2 hours early on Monday so that I could potentially avoid a Bob after work chat. Surprisingly, Bob came in an hour early, lining him up to potentially leave with me. Bob looked exhausted. And I don't mean tired. I mean mentally. I've seen Bob tired. We've worked many late nights on projects together. I've seen him hungover. This wasn't any of that. I almost can't describe it. He looked worn down. He shot me a sup nod, and I gave him one back, and we got to work. I kept my meeting with HR. Our HR rep is a wonderful lady named Sally. I told Sally the whole story, and she said that in her 15 years of HR work, she's never heard a more stupid story. We shared a good laugh, and she told me that it would be unofficially logged just in case Bob or Pam did anything crazy. She told me she thinks Bob is harmless, but to keep my eyes sharp. The rest of the day was uneventful. The most interesting thing that happened was that I saw Bob's face buried in his hands for a good minute or so. With 2 hours to go, I go to the bathroom for some water. Bob follows me in and approaches cautiously. I gave him a surprised look, and he just threw up his hands as if to say he was not hostile. He said he knows I'm the last person I want to talk to right now, but he needs to talk to me. I said fine, but I angled us over to where the security camera was. Paraphrasing here, but he said, "Look, I won't ever speak to you again if you don't want me to, but let me buy you around and explain all of the things Pam didn't tell you when we met the other day." Bob sounded desperate, something I'd never seen from him before. He then hit me with the money quote. "Look man, I could really use a friend right now, and I've always considered you a friend. Well, sorry to disappoint everyone here, but I'm a big gullible softie." I agreed to talk with him, but I told him that there would be absolutely no more meetings on this situation after this. He agreed and said he'd meet me after work. After work, we walked to our usual bar, the same one where I met him and Pam the first time. I suspected Pam might be there, but she wasn't. Nevertheless, I kept my eye open for her. Once we sat down, Bob apologized yet again. This one seemed even more genuine than the first. I told him he didn't need to keep apologizing. I got it the first time. He said that he had to apologize because there's a lot more to the story about the wedding than I thought. Bob explained that he fought Pam like hell to get her to give up the single men's exclusion, but she was dead set on it. They argued for months, and a lot of people offered different solutions. Bob suggested a smaller wedding with only immediate family and friends, but Pam shot that down. She always dreamt of a big wedding with lots of people there, and a small wedding didn't fit her dream. Her parents said, "Why not hire a security guard?" Pam said that she wanted the possibility eliminated completely. She said that a few single men could stand to not be invited to a party for once in their lives. Bob said he had a lot of friends who wanted to come, and that they would be hurt if they weren't invited. Pam said she was making sacrifices too. A lot of her guy friends wanted to come. Bob finally relented and said if the exclusion were to happen, he wanted nothing to do with that decision and wanted it known that it was out of his hands. Pam said she'd take the heat for it if it came to that, but didn't think people would go crazy over it. She also gave Bob the choice of their honeymoon destination since he was making a big sacrifice. They went to the French Riviera, if anyone is curious. Bob said the wedding, reception, and party were amazing. He said that so many women, they were drunk off their arses and falling over themselves. Apparently, they did feel safe, but a drunk vocal minority was complaining about the lack of hot guys to dance with. Bob even laughed because one of them was going around calling it a lesbian wedding since there were only women there. Oh, and some women were absolutely hitting on the handful of single guys there, but Pam didn't mind that as much. Bob said he wasn't rubbing it in, just setting up a point. After the honeymoon, they came home to what Bob described as a PR firestorm. Apparently, Pam had lied to her guy friends about why they weren't invited. One of her close friends let slip the real reason they weren't invited. They were effing furious. She was flooded with angry calls and messages from her friends about Pam, essentially calling them potential sexual predators. Pam explained her position multiple times to her friends, but it fell on deaf ears. She has lost many friends over this. One of the guys said, "If you think that I'm a rapist, then why the F are we even friends?" Pam has been crying for days, and her work life has become terrible. She might even need to leave her job. By this point, Bob had a few hard drinks and was tipsy, so he let loose a little more. He said that her decision had cost him friends of his own. So many of his guy friends were furious to learn they were excluded, and for the reason why. On the day of the wedding, about 6 or so of his closest friends who were excluded decided to go on a fishing trip as a screw you to Bob and Pam. The cherry on top of the petty cake, they decide to donate $500 and some items to a local women's shelter. Bob was devastated, and none of those guys are returning his calls or messages. Even their families are upset with them over the exclusion. Pam's parents are publicly supportive, but chastise her behind the scenes. She doesn't have anyone but her bridesmaids and about 3 other friends who believe in her cause. Bob said at one point that Pam was hysterical and screaming, "Why can't anyone just understand my point of view?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but there was more to this crazy story. At this point, we were about an hour in, and Bob was nice and tipsy. So I pried for more information. Bob said that at first, Pam was sticking to her guns that the exclusion was a good idea, but she was starting to waver a little bit. She said that most people understood where she was coming from, but that it was too heavy-handed and even a little xist. Bob and Pam have had multiple blow-ups over this whole situation, and they're not in a good place right now. He said that instead of feeling giddy about his new wife and basking in the glow of being married, he's harboring a ton of resentment towards her because she's cost him a lot of his friends and ruined their lives over a stupid party. As for me, apparently, Pam really likes me. One of her biggest regrets about this entire situation is not getting to know me better before the wedding. He said that Pam thinks I'm one of the coolest people she's ever met. I asked Bob how she made that determination from a 15-minute chat, and he laughed and said, "I don't know, man. She probably has a crush on you or something." I laughed, but that made the situation a little bit weird. As for Pam's sister, she is a SLT, but not in the way you may think. Bob explained that Pam's sister, Beth, is by all accounts a very smart, successful, and respectful woman. She just so happens to like SX. Bob explained that Beth is really into the kink scene and is into things like ethical non-monogamy. She frequently mentions her adventures to Bob and Pam, and it got them into the lifestyle as well. I was a little surprised, and I asked for clarification, and he said, "Yeah, she kind of got us into some of that stuff." I was shocked. I mean, how often do you hear that your coworker is into BBSM? But hey, no kink shaming from me. So, it turns out that Beth isn't some soul-sucking, home-wrecking, out-of-control succubus. She's just a regular woman who loves his ex. Bob said that Pam was scared that we would hit it off. We share many of the same interests and have similar personality types according to Bob. Pam wasn't lying about that, nor that I was exactly her type. She likes tall guys, and from what I've heard, she'd have been all over me if she found out I was single. Well, now I was curious, so I asked Bob if he had a picture. He pulled up her Instagram, and I must say she was damn gorgeous. She looked like Pam's twin, only she was a little bit thicker. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty pissed at Pam all over again. Bob said that Pam has always been a little jealous of Beth. I don't know why Pam is a stunner herself and looks just like Beth. Bob said that as a foo to Pam, he'd give her my Instagram so we can DM each other, and he'd put in a good word for me. I thanked him profusely. He said that Pam was so desperate to make amends with me because I made a big impression on her, and she thinks that we'd be really good friends if we hung out. Bob said that she was just grasping at straws at this point. She's lost all of her friends, and she wanted to make another one. He said that he'd rein Pam in so that she wouldn't bother me anymore. By this point, Bob is more than tipsy. He says that he's having doubts about this marriage because the wedding process and aftermath have been a nightmare. He thinks it'd be really shallow to divorce her over this, but his life has been ruined by her choices. I was shocked, and he said, "Don't tell Pam, please." I swore that I wouldn't tell her anything. Bob paid for our drinks, and he was going to take public transportation home, but I told him he needs an Uber. He fought me on that, but I insisted, and he agreed to take one. I put him in the Uber and sent him on his way. An hour later, Pam texted me from his work phone. She told me, "Thank you for taking care of my husband. You're a good person." I didn't respond. And that brings us to now. I hope that this is mostly the end of it, but it seems like Pam might be desperate and do something rash. In any case, I'll keep you fine folks updated. Update. A date with Beth. Hey everyone, nothing major has happened, but I have a small update. Bob was true to his word and gave Beth my Instagram. She messaged me last week, and we got to talking. The conversation went so well that we agreed on a coffee date this past weekend. Well, sorry to disappoint the naysayers here, but the date went extremely well. We talked about a lot. Our hobbies, interests, futures, jobs, and families. Bob was right. We are remarkably similar, even down to some of our specific food tastes. The date went so well that we met at a bar next to her office for some after-work drinks. And yes, that date went amazing as well. Now here's the part I think you're all going to like. We're going to do a hike this coming weekend, and along the way, we're going to make a stop at the winery where Bob and Pam had their wedding and pick me up some goddamn apple cider donuts. I think if all goes well with this date, I'm going to ask her to be my girlfriend. She just feels special. So that's it. I'll let you know how that hike date goes, but honestly, I think this situation is mostly settled now. Bob has been keeping his distance, but hooked me up, and Pam hasn't been in contact with me for a week now. After the hike, it'll probably be my last post. I don't intend on milking this thing for unnecessary drama. Thanks all. Comment, giving more context into Pam's thinking from OP in response to a question asking if Beth knew about what was going on. Beth knew all about it. She said everyone begged her to reconsider the ban, but she wouldn't hear of it, though she didn't understand why she wanted to keep me from her. Also, Beth confirmed the wedding Royal Rumble fiasco and some of Pam's bad experiences. Apparently, she had a guy follow her home from a club one night, and that really shook her to her core. Police got involved and everything. Not to mention a couple of guys just straight up groping her in the club. I won't lie, that really made me see things differently. However, she did say that Pam had a tendency to be dramatic about things. Update. The final chapter. Hey all. I want to thank you all for sticking with me through this crazy arse saga. And also for the congratulations for getting with Beth. It means a lot. Now on to the update. As I mentioned last time, me and Beth had met and gone on a few dates. She's truly an amazing woman. She's smart, funny, driven, and very nice. I'm absolutely smitten with this girl. Well, we had a hike this past Saturday, and it was beyond amazing. The weather was perfect, the foliage was beautiful, and the view from the top of the mountain was amazing. We had a picnic at the top of the mountain, and during a lull in the conversation, I summoned all of my courage and asked her if she'd like to be my girlfriend. I was waiting for a more opportune time, but I guess I just got swept up in the moment and view. She smiled, laughed, and said I was the corniest person alive for asking in such a cliché place. But she said that she loved corny and cliché. She said yes, and we sealed it with a kiss. On our way back, we finally stopped by the winery where Bob and Pam had their wedding, and man, it really was beautiful. It had panoramic views of the mountains, and the vineyard was very pretty. But I wasn't here for the view. I was here for some goddamn apple cider donuts. Funny enough, we got there kind of late and almost missed the fresh donuts for the day. Thankfully, we got some of the last batches. God, those donuts were absolutely delicious. We got 2 dozen each, and even got some apple-filled cider donuts. The wait was worth it. Afterward, we went back to her apartment and made dinner together. I've never had such an amazing date with a woman. It was just perfect. I didn't want to leave, but I couldn't be presumptuous. When I picked up my keys to go, she grabbed them from me and said, and I quote, "If you seriously think you're leaving, then you're out of your effing mind." I must have had the biggest smile on my face. So we spent the rest of the weekend together. We had a wonderful Sunday brunch and a nice walk around our city holding hands, going into stores and sightseeing. Unfortunately for me, we had to part last night because we had work in the morning. I was damn near tears, lol. This is going to sound dramatic as hell, but I've spent the last few hours at work being totally miserable that I'm not with Beth. It's like when you're in high school and you get your first boyfriend-girlfriend, and you can't stand to be apart from each other. But you don't want sweet love stories. You're here for the drama. Well, me and Beth made it Instagram official on Sunday, and apparently Pam saw it on her sister's profile. She texted Beth on Sunday night. "How do you know OP?" she said. "Bob introduced us." Pam only replied, "I knew this would happen." We figured that might mean trouble down the road, but we don't care. Pam can be as mad as she wants. This morning, I actually went up to Bob and thanked him for introducing me to Beth. He explained that he and Pam had a huge fight over him introducing us. He said he didn't care about it though. It was worth it just to get us together, and was a big foo to Pam. I told him I'd buy him a round as a thank you, but he said don't worry about it, and that it was the least he could do. So that's it for this update. I'd like to hope that this is the end, but Pam seems pretty upset with us being together. Either way, I'm just so happy with Beth. She's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of person. And rest assured, I'll update if anything further happens. Peace and love. Second story. Entitled Father who neglected me for his new wife, and her spoiled golden child made me a babysitter. He now demands I take her on my vacation, threatening to not fund my trip, and then allowed his wife to abuse me and call me names. So, I cut ties with my dad, packed my bag, and enjoyed the trip at my own expense before going to college and NC with my dad. I 17F am graduating, and my friends and I have already planned a trip to a cabin for the summer before we start college. I have been a babysitter since I was 13, so I have saved up a considerable amount of money. When I was 15, my dad got remarried about a year and a half after my mom passed away. My dad's wife had a 13-year-old daughter, and as soon as we moved in together, they started to push her off on me and force us to do everything together. I don't like my stepsister. She's always throwing tantrums if she doesn't get what she wants. She's spoiled to the point that at my 16th birthday, she got her own special cake so she wouldn't feel left out. And she also blew out the candles on my cake. And when I complained, my dad told me, "It's time to grow up. Being a sister is about sharing things." I told him I didn't have a sister, and I guess she overheard, and she went on a rampage. The party was ruined. I distanced myself more from them after that. I'm forced to either take her with me to places or stay home with her if I can't take her, or my dad or dad's wife can't watch her or don't want to deal with her. Imagine everything that I said she does with my dad and his wife onto a 15, 17-year-old me. I was forced to take her bowling with me, and she would not stop trying to dig her hands in the part where the balls come out. And she tried running down the lane, so I had to take her home, and my night was ruined. This happens a lot, but they don't care. I have tried to keep this trip a secret from her. But when I was in my room on the phone talking about it over pizza and music, I found out she snuck in and hid in the closet and was eavesdropping. She burst out, asking if she could come, and I told her no and to get out. She started stomping her feet, and she ran out. My friends begged me to not invite her. My dad called me downstairs and asked if she could go because she could use a vacation. And I told him I'm not taking her. They can take her on a vacation, but I'm not watching her for almost 3 weeks alone. My dad's wife called me selfish and said that my dad was paying for a portion of it anyway. And if Lily doesn't go, then I don't get to go. I told her she doesn't get a say in any of this. She's not my mom, and to stop forcing her child on me when she created what she is. Lily starts yelling at me about not being a big sister, and I don't want to spend time with her. I snap and tell her I don't. She ran away crying, and my dad said he won't pay for the rest of my trip if I don't take her. So I told him if he does that, I will not be talking to him anymore, nor will I forgive him for it. He said I'm being dramatic, and she isn't bad. So I grabbed a bag and went to my aunt's house, my mom's sister, and told her what happened. And she said she would put up what he took away, and when I go to college, I can stay with her. I told my dad what I was doing, and he blew up at me and said I was being a brat, and they're my family now and not my aunt. As far as I know, she does not have any disabilities. She's been to doctors and therapy. She's just insanely spoiled, and that's how she's always gotten her way when told no. The first time I met her, everyone agreed on Mexican except her, and she was yelling in the car for 10 minutes before she calmed down by her mom appeasing her. Then she goes back on her phone, texting. If she does, then that explains why she acts that way, and I can take it that she can't help it. But I still shouldn't be forced to watch her 24/7s. Relevant comments. Commenter. Your aunt is acting more like a family than your dad. I agree. See if you can live with your aunt now. Are you dependent on your dad for college? OP, I am not. My mom left me money for 2 years. I decided to do an RN program, and then go back once I work and save up more money. Commenter. If you are being truthful about Lily's behaviors, it sounds like she has some sort of emotional or intellectual impairment. Has she had a formal diagnosis? OP, no. She is just extremely spoiled and acts like this to get her way. She knows she just has to cry a bit and stomp around, and they'll give in. To a deleted and downvoted comment. I don't have, nor did I want a sister. It's not even like they tried to slowly bring us together. They forced her on me. She constantly throws tantrums, so if any small thing is about me, she needs to be the center of attention. She may be a child, but she is not my child, and I shouldn't have had to become a parent because of my dad's wife's lack of parenting. Commenter. How far away from 18 are you? I would slowly start moving important things to your aunt's house, and then move in the day you turn 18. Make sure you let your school know not to contact your dad anymore, and that you are living with your aunt. OP, I turn 18 in September. I have read the comments, and I am making lists of everything I need to get and put at my aunt's house. On being the bigger person. I don't have to be the bigger person. I'm tired of being neglected and having her forced on me. I'm going on this trip without her. And if that ends up with me not talking to my dad anymore, so be it. He's the adult and parent here. Update. Almost 6 months later. I know a lot of people wanted an update to my last post. I can't post a link, so you can go to my profile to see it. The trip happened, and I did not end up taking her like I said I wasn't. From the time that I posted that up until the time that I left, the household was very tense and awkward. I was not speaking to any of them. The only person I had to confide in and talk to was my aunt, and I'm so grateful for her. My dad still thought that I was going to bring her on the trip, and I kept telling him that I am not watching her, and she is not coming with me. The morning of the trip, we left at like 6 in the morning when he called me. I was already about 5 hours out, so he couldn't do anything. When I got back, it was a lot of yelling and crying from me and my dad and his wife. She said that I left them in a tough position, and they had to stay home because they couldn't get anyone to watch Lily. My dad and I had a serious talk for hours, and he agreed that maybe we need to separate so we can work on our relationship. Which hurt me because I would have liked for him to tell me I can stay in my own home while we do it. But I did end up going to my aunt's house with no issues. My dad and I started family therapy with just the two of us. His wife was pretty upset. He was actually listening to me and was seeing where I was coming from. Right when we were getting good and building a better relationship, I came over for dinner, and he asked if we could integrate his wife and Lily into therapy. And I told him that I had no interest in having a relationship with them. She called me a selfish CNT and said that I needed to be grateful that she let me stay with them after she moved in. I waited for my dad to correct her, and he was silent pretty much, so I left, and I haven't talked to him in almost a month. He keeps showing me that he will not be on my side. So, to wrap things up, the cabin trip was so much fun. I have never felt so free from a burden. The trip was in June, and we were there for almost a month. We extended it. When I was packing for school, my dad came to visit, and I guess his wife called, and he had to lie about where he was because I guess she doesn't want him to see me. So I told him we don't need to have contact right now or continue therapy, because it's clear which part of his family he cares more about. I don't know what's going to become of my dad, and right now I don't care. I'm focused on school and studying to become a nurse. I don't want any negativity to ruin this experience, but I'd be lying if I said it doesn't hurt that I don't have a parent to experience this with. But my aunt says she is my surrogate mom, and to share all my worries and success with her. I am currently in my first week of college, and the amount of freedom I feel here is also so new. I am a little overwhelmed, but I am in an honors club. I also am in a creative reading book club, and the friends I have made are so amazing. I am currently living on campus, and I have never been better mentally. I am getting separate therapy to deal with my mom's death, because that was never offered to me by my dad. My aunt has truly become a mother figure to me. Being 2 states away from her is really hard. But I can't wait for weekend visits and holiday visits. Also, another thing is that I'm going to be a godmother. My aunt was told at 22 that she would never be able to have kids, and she is currently 4 months pregnant. And I'm so excited because if anybody is going to be a good mother, I know it's going to be her. When she came to visit and told me I think she saw, I was a little worried. I told her I am so excited and happy for her, and nothing will change that. But she's the only family I have right now, and I don't want to get left behind like I did at home. And we cried. And she promised me that she was filling in for my mom, and she will be there for the rest of my life, whether I like it or not. I am planning the baby shower, and I can't wait for the baby to be here. But yeah, that's it. Thank you all for checking up on me and giving me encouraging words. Relevant comments. Commenter. I just don't understand how your dad doesn't see that Lily is a massive problem if they have to hire a babysitter at her age or being 15. And they were stuck at home with her as a result. OP, he doesn't want to see it. Or he does and cares more about keeping his wife happy. Commenter. Also, what do you write about in this writer's club? OP, bring in work you have written and share it. Write flash fiction from the same prompt, write poems, watch videos or lectures about writing techniques. Talk about writing contests or places to submit stories. We're talking about incorporating improv, so we can be creative that way with our stories. Commenter downvoted. I feel like you should have set some better boundaries instead of just giving up. You need to lay it out for him. Do you really think she's good for your life if she's keeping you away from your daughter? Are you really a man and a father? If you're going to let a woman dictate what you can and can't do, I would tell him straight up you don't have the luxury of giving up because you made me. So I would appreciate it if you got a goddamn backbone and started acting like it. OP, that's fair, and I respect your opinion. But it's not my job to try and fix anything or set boundaries anymore. We did talk about it in therapy, and he still tried to integrate them into the sessions, when I have expressed hundreds of times that I do not want that. So I'm done trying. I'm the child in this situation. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.